Minecraft is finally playable on the Quest 3. Well, it has been for a couple months now, although I've really wanted to take my time to make sure what limitations it had and what it didn't before I reported on this. I'll be honest, I've been so excited for the opportunity to finally run this on my Quest 3, because on the Quest 2 I never felt like it had enough power to truly enjoy it to the fullest. For those of you not familiar, this is QuestCraft, a fork of Java Minecraft that specifically is tailored to work on Android VR headsets. It does currently require you to sideload with SideQuest. For those of you who might have been following the project, you might have noticed it actually has been available for Quest 2 for years now. But the Quest 3, ever since launch, broke some compatibility because they were using a new GPU, which required some different support to be integrated in. Overall performance is actually pretty acceptable, I would say. It feels like running it on a medium-end PC a few years back. I mean, in all fairness, Minecraft kind of runs like a hog even on a really powerful PC, especially once you start throwing mods in the mix. Now, this is Java Minecraft at its core, so it does have compatibility with mods. Specifically, Fabric is mostly supported. There are some limitations, mostly in terms of hardware capability. I pretty much have had no good luck or good fortune running any mod that doesn't work with Sodium or some fork of it. There's actually a handful of mods that are included in this QuestCraft release to actually make it play as good as it does. And one of those is a version of Sodium. So if you do like a blank install and don't include Sodium, you're going to have a rough time unless you have something to replace it. Just a heads up to those with a sensitivity to flashing lights, there is a low light situation with a little bit of flicker here in a second. These issues with Sodium actually delayed this video from getting put out, as well as a subsequent video that'll eventually come, because I'm trying to build a mod pack that integrates a lot of what I like about PC Minecraft that I played on Forge with QuestCraft. A lot of the mod packs that I enjoyed either have a stand-in or actually were ported over to Fabric. So I took the opportunity to try to bring them in. Unfortunately, Sodium is incompatible with some of them. So that's a roadblock I need to sort out. There is just something so much more visceral about walking around in this world. Even though it's not realistic, it is immersive. And you really do feel a pang of fear when you stick your head out of your little, hole where you're hiding, no matter how well armed you are. So I actually just kind of put together a little base here. It's just so cheesy, I would say, but it's one of my favorite ways to play the game to start out with, is just to dig down and make a little hole in the ground. I talked about the general experience, but I'll say the controls actually are pretty intuitive as well. It took a little bit of getting used to about how to switch items and making sure you handle that correctly, but overall it works well. As you may have seen earlier, there are teleport controls as well to improve comfort for those without strong VR legs. And swinging your pickaxe actually does hammer away if you want. You don't have to hold a button. You can swing your pickaxe or your axe at a tree or a rock, and it will chip away. But I would say it gets really tiring really fast. Thankfully, you can hold a button and do that as well. Something else important to note is that you can play multiplayer with other Java players, especially if you set up a server and they have all the same components. I wouldn't recommend hosting a multiplayer server from your headset just because it adds extra heft that your headset has to process. So I would really recommend, if you're going to try to play multiplayer, you should either use a third-party hosting service that'll host an actual server, or you can host it on a home server, or have somebody else host their local game for you. And it's an important distinction that this doesn't require other players to be in VR. They can play regular Minecraft, and they can even install a mod to see your kinematically accurate movements to your VR controllers. It's not a requirement, but it does add a little bit more immersion for those that are playing with you. I will say that the freedom of running on my Quest 3 is really awesome, although I still think that there is some stability improvements that can be made. Although I think some of those are limited just because of the hardware in general, because I have played Minecraft before from my computer. But in that scenario, you are either limited by having to have a PC and stream from it, or being physically connected, depending on what kind of headset you're using. But in that scenario, you can use Forge mods if you're playing with PCVR and Vivecraft on the computer. Unfortunately, this is one of the major limitations for QuestCraft, is that Forge technically can run. You can use Forge mods in some situations, but you're basically going to get one frame. Like, it's not playable. It's technically possible, but not in practice. All in all, I think that's all I wanted to cover in this video. It's really just an initial look at what you can do and kind of my first thoughts on the interface and how playable it is. I do want to do subsequent updates if I can get a mod pack working that adds a lot more variety and that can work with the QuestCraft as well as PCVR Vivecraft, because I really would like to see some unity where people can get on the same platform, if you will, the same kind of server mod pack, and play between both. Being able to bring more PCVR as well as standalone as well as flat gamers all together in one place is something that is kind of rare in the current space we're in. There's games like Phasmophobia that do this, but overall there's not too many. You know, most games are either VR or not, and the ones that bridge that gap, like Elite Dangerous and Phasmophobia, do not work on standalone. Anyway, as I told you guys before, I try not to do too many game videos unless I think it changes, the dynamic of the environment, where the Quest ecosystem is, or VR as a whole. But I think Minecraft coming to the headset, even as a, third-party application, is such a major deal. So many people grew up on Minecraft. So many people are still growing up on Minecraft. And this breathes even that much more life into Java Minecraft, which I think, for me, is still the definitive version just because of all the mods. I hope eventually Bedrock gets to benefit from some of the same level of creativity, but so far they're really not moving in that direction other than a few skin packages and stuff like that. Well, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.